About 20 years ago, we started back up a pew packers class for the very first time. We hadn't had pew packers in years. And so Dan Jenkins, a co-worker down there, was going to teach this pew packers class, and we hadn't had it for years. And so our daughter goes to this. She's probably 3 years old. And first pew packers class she's ever been to. And so she goes to, and the first question, you get down with all these little kids. She's 3 years old. First question, Dan says, "What's the best book in the world?" Context everything, right? What's the best book in the world? And she thought for a minute, and then she said, "The Cat in the Hat." Well, to her, that was one of her favorite books. But inside of a church setting, right? Context. That's probably not the answer that we're looking for. If you're inside the church setting, you're probably going to be more along the Bible. But so context. And so I mentioned that to say, if I were to ask in a different context than where we are, what's the greatest work in the world? What would people say? Oh, an engineer, a nurse. You got to be able to help people. A teacher, instilling things into people's, into children's minds. Somebody works in computers or IT. We keep the world running, they say. And so, what's the greatest work in the world? You're going to have all sorts of things, but context in this room, in this place today. What's the greatest work in the world? Well, it already has the word "great" in it. It's the Great Commission that Jesus gave to us. There might be others who get to do the great works of the world, get to be the engineers and the doctors and the nurses and all of that. But we, as His children, have the greatest work in the world, and it's called the Great Commission. And I know we know that. I know we've heard that. I know we know those verses. But I want you to think about Jesus saying these words to us today. To each, not to a large group of people where you can just kind of blend in and, okay, that's not a part of me. But He says them to you. He says them to me. He says, "David, go, therefore. David, make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them into the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. David, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I commanded you, David." It gets really personal, doesn't it? "Go into all the world, David, and preach the gospel to every creature. He who believes and is baptized shall be saved. He who does not believe will be condemned." When I look at those verses, and how many times have you heard them? How many times have you studied them? How many times have you heard lessons on them? When I think about them in a renewed, refreshed focus, and I think about them being pointed at me, then I have to ask myself the question, am I doing it? In the last hour, we talked about leadership training. Is everybody going to be a leader in the Lord's church? The answer is obviously no. Some will never be qualified to be leaders. And so that lesson just by nature sort of doesn't apply to everybody here, and for certain doesn't apply to everybody here equally. But when we talk about this topic, this hits all of us equally. What I want to talk about for the next few minutes is personal evangelism. I'm not here to talk about world evangelism. I'm not talking about mass evangelism. I want to talk about personal evangelism. And as we start, I want to share with you 6 fundamental facts about personal evangelism. These are things you know. They're not revolutionary by any stretch. Okay? Number 1, fundamental fact about personal evangelism is that the world is lost. Breaking news, right? The world is lost. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But here's the second part of this first fact. The world is lost, and so am I if I don't do anything to reach them. That gets really uncomfortable. The first part of that is a fact that we know. The second part of that is like, wait a minute, I don't think that's right. Well, Jesus said, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do the things that I say?" Can I be right if I don't do the things that He says? To him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin, James 4, verse 17. I could say the world is lost, and okay, but when I say, and so am I, if I don't do something to reach them, ouch. But if you don't believe that's true, I need you to tell me that that's not true. Fundamental fact number 2, personal evangelism is a natural outgrowth. A natural outgrowth of my deep and abiding concern for lost souls. If I have a deep and abiding concern for somebody, am I going to do something about it? And how am I going to do it? Naturally. It's just going to be a natural outgrowth. Some of you have grandkids. Some of you have great grandkids, right? And so is it a big thing? Is it a monumental task? Is it something that makes you uncomfortable, uneasy, that I don't have time for to do something for your grandkids, your great-grandkids? Or is it a natural outgrowth? Do you have a deep and abiding concern for your grandkids? Just naturally. You're going to do something for them. Naturally, you're going to take care of them. Maybe you're thinking, I don't have kids. What about your pets? Some of you treat your pets like they're your grandkids, okay? So you've got a deep, abiding concern for your pets and your cows or whatever it may be. And so it's a natural, I know, it's got personal. It's a natural outgrowth. It's not, I have to do this. No, I just do it because that's who I am. That's where my heart is. Number 3, personal evangelism is the responsibility of every Christian. No exceptions. Number 4, personal evangelism begins and precedes one person at a time. Go into all the world, Lord, that's huge. There's billions of people on the planet. One person at a time. Have you ever had some food laid out in front of you? You're like, wow, I can't eat all of that. And then you just push yourself away from the table and say, I can't eat all of that, so I won't eat any of it. Probably not, right? You're like, boy, I can't eat all of that, but I'll give it a try. You know, but what'd you do? One bite at a time. And all of a sudden you look down and say, ooh, where did it all go? That's how personal evangelism works. You don't have to go to everybody, but it starts one person at a time. Personal evangelism requires hard work. Sorry to tell you. It's going to take effort to do this. Maybe that's what keeps us from doing it, because we want that ease that's involved sometimes, but it's going to take some effort. But let me tell you, it is 100% worth it. Every effort you put in here is going to be paid back to you, is worth it. I have no second thoughts about saying that personal evangelism is the most exciting work that you can do as a Christian.
Amen.
It doesn't get more exciting. All right, 6th fundamental fact is that when it comes to personal evangelism, or anything really, if we plan for nothing, if we pray for nothing, if we are hoping for nothing, if we are dreaming of nothing, and if we are doing nothing, well, what are we going to get? It's not hard to figure out. So, if I am not being profitable, successful in personal evangelism, if a congregation is not, and I know this congregation is very evangelistic, and so I have no worries about that. But if we're not planning, if we're not doing, if we're not hoping we can do more, then there's not going to be any reaping from what we're doing. What would happen if I truly had a deep and abiding concern for lost souls? What would happen if I had a genuine agape love for individuals who were lost in sin and headed to an eternity in hell? An agape love that says, I want what's best for this person, and I'm going to do what is needed to help this person. What would happen if I had that for them? And so as we think about personal evangelism today, I want to share with you just some thoughts that here's how to be truly successful. Here's what it's going to take for us to be to achieve what we need to achieve in personal evangelism. 2 things, but it's actually 4 things. Here's what it's going to take. We're going to have to stop and act. Now that may sound backwards, right? It may sound like maybe what your wife says to you. Now stop talking. or what your wife tells your children. Now stop talking. Now tell me who did this. Who broke this? Well, wait, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to stop talking? Or am I supposed to tell you who broke it? Which is, so to stop and to act, which one do you want? We've got to do all of this. So, 4 steps. 4 steps in personal evangelism. Step 1 is to stop. Step 1 is I've got to stop getting me in the way. If I want to be successful in personal evangelism, I've got to look in the mirror and realize I'm the problem sometimes. I'm the hurdle sometimes. I am the reason that I am not, tell me, what reason is there that I'm not doing more? I am the reason. So in Luke chapter 14, you've got the parable of the Great Supper. And when Jesus tells the parable of the Great Supper, the instruction is given to the men, go out and invite all of these people to the feast. It's that, go and say, all things are ready, come to the feast. Well, that's Luke chapter 14, verse 17. The very next verse says, they all with one accord began to make excuses. Come, the feast is ready. Go and invite all of these people to come in. And they all with one accord began to make excuses. ALL. Go into all the world. Preach the gospel to all creatures. And they all with one accord begin to make excuses. Do we make excuses for not doing it? We've got to overcome us. We've got to identify what are those excuses, what are those reasons that I don't do this, what are those fears, and the fears are legitimate. I get it. Those fears are legitimate. We've got to identify what are those things and overcome them to break down those walls and those barriers and to stop getting me in the way. Now, I'm not going to go through and develop all these, but here are some things that I've heard over the years, and I'm sure you've heard these and others. Sometimes folks will say, I don't have time. I'm too busy. Too busy doing what? Would be a question. If I don't have time to do the greatest work on earth, I am too busy. I need to figure out what I'm doing that's keeping me from doing it and rearrange my priorities to get the busyness involved in the Lord's work and to bring other things where they need to be in perspective. I don't have time. I've got time. I need to adjust my schedule. Number 2, that's the preacher's job. That's what we've got him for. Well, the preacher has just as much of the Great Commission directed at him as you do to you. It's to all of us. I don't see anybody else doing it. It's just, there's not a whole lot of members doing this, so I feel like I'm comfortable here. Is that our standard? Is our standard what everybody else is doing or not doing? When your kids came to you and said, everybody else is doing this, that was a good standard, right? Everybody else, well, of course, we're going to do it if everybody else does. Well, if everybody else isn't doing it, is that the standard we're going to use? Here's the biggest one. I don't know enough. I just don't know enough. When we get to the end of this today, I'm going to tell you, you do know enough. I'm going to show you, you do know enough. But that's our fear. I don't know enough. They're going to ask me something I don't know the answer to. You know what? They are. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That somebody's going to ask you a question you don't know the answer to. It's going to happen. You know what the answer is? I'll give you the answer. You don't know the answer? I'll give you the answer. Here's the answer. I don't know. But David, I'm supposed to know. I'm a Christian. They're gonna make fun of me. Okay, I don't know. But I'm going to study on that, and I'm going to get back to you. Some of the best times, I didn't feel it at the time, some of the best times in my life have been when I've been nailed to a wall by somebody with a Bible question, with some kind of argument that I couldn't answer at the time. And I felt so low, and I felt so dumb, and I thought, wow, I don't know what to do here. I say some of those were the best times of my life because it forced me to come back here, to dig in, find the answer, and go back to it. It's okay to say, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Number 5, David, religion is not the acceptable thing to talk about. You look at our society as just, well, what other unacceptable things do we talk about? I mean, some of you talk about Alabama football, or you talk about Tennessee football. I mean, I don't know what's acceptable and unacceptable in some places, but you still talk about it, right? I mean, I'm not up here to talk about the Gators. I don't like the Gators, right? So when somebody comes to me and talks, I'm from Florida, I'm supposed to like the Gators, and they come and talk to me about, that's kind of unacceptable. I don't care about the Gators. But you're talking to me about, but we talk about things that other people don't want to hear about all the time. Why not? Our relationship with Christ. I'm afraid of what people will think of me. Goes along with number 5 here. I'm afraid of what people will think of me. We talk about all sorts of things that doesn't stop us. I just don't know that many people. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. I don't know that, David. The reality is I don't know that many. You do. I guarantee you do. Last one here, I don't know how. I don't know what to say. If I'm supposed to teach somebody the gospel, that's my greatest fear. Is I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, and this, if we get to the end of this lesson, I want to address that. We're not going to address all of these in this, but the point of looking at these is to say the first step in being more successful and effective in personal evangelism is to stop getting me in the way. Here's, to me, we're using this word great, the greatest work is the Great Commission. The greatest part of the Great Commission is that last line that says, "Lo, I am with you always." To me, that's the greatest part. Because it's not Jesus just saying, hey, go out there and do this, and Jesus is in heaven sipping on his iced tea. It'd be sweet tea, of course, but he's sitting in heaven sipping on his tea, watching us do it. No. I am with you always. This is not our work. It's his. This is not our, it's not something that he has put on us and he's going to say, it's all on you. He is with us every step of the way. He's there to strengthen us. He's there to help it. And how and the what of that process, I don't understand all of that, but we are not alone. And we don't have anything to worry about if we are engaged in his work. I need to stop getting myself in the way. Whatever it is, and you may do this exercise, you don't have to do it right now. Whatever it is that's keeping you from being involved in personal evangelism, you might write it down on a piece of paper. Sometimes you can think it, but sometimes if you write it down on a piece of paper and actually have to look at it, it becomes real. What's keeping me from talking to somebody about the gospel, teaching somebody the gospel? What's keeping me? Write it down. Look at it, and then pray about it. God, this is why I'm not involved in teaching somebody the gospel. Please help me to overcome whatever this is. I've got to stop, and I've got to act. What am I doing when I'm acting? Well, number 1. Step 2, the letter A, is I need to acknowledge, I need to recognize, I need to awaken to those people who are around me, who are prospects for the gospel. I've got to realize that everywhere I turn, there is somebody that is out there who needs the gospel. Personal evangelism, to me, is different than world evangelism or mass evangelism. World evangelism is, you got missionaries going all over the world, and I send money to them. I can't be in Paraguay, but I can send money there. That's good. That's not personal evangelism. And me sending a check to Paraguay is not fulfilling my respect. And mass evangelism is, to me, is when a church takes on some advertising in the community. A church is involved in a radio program, a TV program, which I know that you are, and I'm thankful for that. That's great. That's not personal evangelism. All of world evangelism, mass evangelism, those things have to be done. But personal evangelism involves people that I know, people that I meet, people that I live near, people that I have contact, people that I talk to. That's where it's not people that might watch a television program. It might be people who live in Paraguay and they might have contact with this missionary I am supporting. It's talking about my circle of influence. The people that are around me. And I'm not just talking about friends and family. I'm talking about people that you're going to see today you've never seen before when you're out at some store. That are in my circle of influence that they may never meet another New Testament Christian in their entire life. That's on me. That's my responsibility. And so what does Jesus say in John chapter 4, verse 35? He's got 3 words that have to do with your eyes. He starts with the word behold. What does that word behold mean? Open up. Pay attention. Behold, lift up your eyes and look. I find it amazing you got 3 words that are there saying the same thing. Behold, lift up your eyes, look. What is that? Oh, pay attention. Don't say we can do this later. He's saying we need to do it now. We need to look around and realize that there are souls everywhere that we turn. Those souls are not just unknown. They have specific identities. I know them. I might know their name. I know what that person looks like. I know where they work, whatever it may be. And that person is going to spend an eternity in heaven or in hell. And little old me can have an impact on where that person goes forward. I've got the good news of Jesus, and they may not know it. That is their greatest need. In personal evangelism, I've got to open my eyes. I've got to realize that every person I come across is a soul who needs what I have. So somebody says, I just don't know. I just don't know that many people. I just kind of live in a bubble. I'm not around that many people. Can I share with you some categories? And we're not going to go through all these. Can I just share with you some categories of people that you probably know who need the gospel? When you talk about your relatives, whether it be a close relative or distant relative, talk about your neighbors, your friends, your workmates, schoolmates, teammates, some acquaintance you have. Maybe you've never met them. Maybe they're just an online acquaintance. You've got religious friends. Maybe you're in some club. You're in the Lions Club or something. There's people there that need the gospel. You got a restaurant worker. You go to a restaurant and you always want to sit in that person's section. Or you go to Subway, you go to some restaurant, and it's always the same person making your sandwich and checking you out. And you talk to them and you know them, and you know their name even if they don't have their name tag on. You know that person. They need the gospel. With some retail worker, same situation. Some of you folks do a lot of shopping. I'm not talking about Amazon. I'm talking about in-store shopping. And you know the people that work there. They need the gospel. What about your pharmacist? You know your pharmacist? What about your repairman, the guy you trust with your car? She needs the gospel. What about your insurance agent, your accountant? You go through this list. And as you go through this list, all of a sudden, you start putting names next to these. And if you're like me, some of these I don't put a name next to it because I don't know their name. My pharmacist, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you the name, but I know who it is. And so there's an identity that is there. Maybe it's the spouse of some member of this congregation who's not a Christian, or a child of the member of this congregation who's not a Christian. People going through life change, that's a huge category, and it goes through a number of the rest of these. People who are going through life changes are often more receptive to the gospel. And so you find somebody going through one of these life changes in these columns and say, I know somebody, Joe. I know somebody who I work with. They're going through that right now. Ready-made for me to teach them the gospel. Do you know anybody who's just undesirable by society? Nobody else wants to have anything to do with them. Jesus does. I should. And they just don't fit. You know anybody stressed about life? Anybody depressed? Anybody that's not happy with their church? My church is doing this, my church is doing that. Open door for me to walk through when they're making those comments. You know anybody that's irked by moral trends? What's going on? Anybody talking and say, I can't believe it, I can't believe it. And they're talking about all these perversions there. Open door. That's somebody that I need to walk through and say, that's who I need. When I don't know how many's on this list, and you can multiply this 2 or 3 times over. The point of this is to say, we've got these people all around us. And if we're going to be effective in personal evangelism, we've got to awaken. Everybody I see and everybody I know is a prospect for the gospel. Letter C. What do I do? Step 3. Step 3 is once I have awakened, once I've opened my eyes, once I behold and lift up my eyes and I look and see all these souls, now I need to create opportunities. Now, all right, now, David, I see these souls. Yep, here's this person. They need the gospel. Okay, what do I do? I need to create an opportunity. Now, creating opportunities is different than teaching them. It's not the same. It's not the same process. But in Colossians chapter 4, verse 3, I find it interesting that Paul says, he tells the church of Colossae, pray for us that a door may be opened for the gospel. What's the word door there? Your translation may have the word opportunity instead of the word door. Paul says, pray for a door to be opened. What's that talking about? We want to create an opportunity. Is the door being opened, the gospel being... No, it's not. He's not teaching the gospel. He's just looking for an opportunity, the door to be there, and that needs to be created sometimes. So, how can we create opportunities to teach somebody the gospel? How can we spark their interest? How can we start this? I'm not going to develop these at all. Sometimes I would spend more time on this, but here's the point. It starts by my distinct living. Somebody's not going to care what I say about Jesus if they don't see Jesus in my life already. That's right. We've had, I hate to admit this, we had somebody visit our service one time, and there was a man up leading a prayer in that service. She mentioned after services to somebody, I work with that guy. I didn't even know he was a Christian. Okay, great. Here's a soul that needs the gospel, and she sees him at a church that I didn't know that guy was a Christian. If people don't see us as Christians, if they don't know I'm real about my faith and my devotion to Christ, I can't teach them the gospel. I have failed in all of these areas where God tells me to focus. But that's not the only step. Some people will say that's good enough. Some people say, if I just live the Christian life in front of them, they'll figure out and they'll come and ask me. Jesus did not say, wait until somebody comes and asks you to teach them the gospel and then teach them the gospel. So it's not enough just to live the Christian life, but we've got to do that. That's where it starts. But let me share with you some deliberate, not just some distinct living that we're involved in. Let me show you very quickly with some deliberate interactions that we can have with individuals. And again, these are just things that we're doing to try to create opportunities to teach. First of all, to create opportunities to teach, there are some things that we can give people. What are we talking about? I carry in my wallet, and we have these for our members out in the lot. We've got little what we would call business cards. I hate calling them business cards. That's not what I want it to be, but that's what it is. So I carry in my wallet these business cards that have the church's information on it. It's got the church's address, website. It's got church's service times on them. And I always have those in my wallet. And I know there are other members who always have them on them so that they have an opportunity. Hey, do you go to church and just be able to pass something that simple out to somebody? Maybe it's not, and I saw you've got some stuff out here as well. Maybe it's some kind of a tract. Maybe it's some kind of a bookmark that's been created. Maybe it's an invitation to an event. Now, we're going to talk in a minute about sending things electronically, but I am a wholehearted believer in the printed piece of paper, the printed page. I am a wholehearted believer. It's a whole lot harder for somebody to get rid of that than it is to click delete. They'll click delete all day long, but if they have something in their hand, they'll throw it away, but they might be less likely to ditch it than they would. Now, what do I mean by that? We had an event 4, 5, 6 years ago, and I can't remember what the event was. It may have been our gospel meeting, may have been a friends and it was probably a friends and family day. I can't remember what it was. But we had printed invitations, usually a little card that's got the information about whatever the event is. Just a small card for our members to take, and we'll order those by the thousands for our members to take and to pass out. Individually put it in people's hands so that they visually see something. We had one of our ladies who went to Publix, to the supermarket. She was passing these out to people just coming out of Publix. You get people giving all sorts of stuff coming in and out of Publix, right? Or Kroger or whatever. But she was taking these cards to people just coming out of Publix. She was giving them to. She didn't know these people. Hey, we got this thing going on in church. She's passing them out. So she gave it to one young couple that was coming out. This young couple, she took it. She put it in her purse. Got all these groceries. She takes it. She sticks it in her purse, and they go home. She unpacks her groceries, puts the groceries away, later sees this thing in her purse, and she takes the card out. She told me later, she took the card out, and she said, this is about, I can't throw this away. This is about God and the church. That'd be bad for me to throw this. I don't, but she looked at the card, she said, I just can't bring myself to throw it. So she put it up on a shelf in her house. She's like, I can't throw this away. I'll just put it up on the shelf with all the other junk, all the other stuff I don't need, right? Fast forward a few months. Some things start going on in this young couple's life. And they start talking to each other, and they said, we probably should find a church to start going to. Things just aren't working right. We probably should find a church to go to. A light bulb went off in that lady's mind. She said, there was that lady outside of Publix. And she gave me that card. What did I do with that? Where did I put that card? And she searched and she found this card, pulled it off the shelf. Next Sunday they were at services. A month later they were baptized into Christ. Why? A lot of reasons. A lot of reasons. But because somebody gave something to them. Put that in their head. Is that going to happen Of course it's not going to happen every time. You know, it's not going to happen a majority of the time. But it is something that I can give to somebody that is a visual reminder. Oh, yeah, they had this happen. And that event, whatever the friends and family, it was long over with. But the contact with the church was there. The interest that person had shown to them outside of Publix was there. And there's any number of things that you can print off and to give to somebody, but you can give them something. Number two, you can send them something. Now this is where we get into the electronic age, right? And somebody say, David, you're in the old ages with this printed stuff. Yep, I'm in the old ages. But you can do the electronic stuff as well, where you can send them a link to your church website. You've got an awesome church website that says, I just wanted to share with you our church website. And there's a lot of good stuff on here. Or maybe it's a specific sermon. Hey, I heard this sermon the other Sunday, and I thought it was pretty good. I just want to share this with you. Send them a link. Or an article that you have found that is, something short. Maybe it has something to do with what you've talked with this person. Hey, I found this article. I'm not trying to overload you. I found it interesting. Just thought you might as well. Just drop them a note. Or it may be sending them a note to say, here's a Bible verse that helped me this morning. Hope it'll help you too. Just a short little text message. Maybe it's a message that says, I've been a Christian for this many years, and I just want to tell you, here's what I have found to really be the best part of being a Christian. Here's why I love being a Christian. Just, 3 or 4 ideas. But you're just sending them a thought. Dropping in, here's something. Now, let me make a differentiation here. I'm talking about one-on-one sending stuff. I'm not talking about posts. Those are different. And do those all day long too. All right? Post to the world. Do that. That's mass. To me, that's mass evangelism. Do those posts all day long. Post on your social media. All of this good stuff. But that's throwing the seed out there to all, and we need to do that. But I'm talking about one-on-one. I'm talking about to this person, an individual note that says, I just thought of you, and I wanted to send you this. And then for all of these, we need to follow up later. There are some things that you can invite them to, obviously. We need to be involved in inviting them to worship, obviously. But what we talked about Bible classes last night. What about just saying, hey, we've got these Bible classes for our kids here. Why don't you bring your kids over and bring them to Bible class, or inviting them to a church event. Sometimes an easy way to get somebody involved is, instead of inviting them to worship, hey, we've got this picnic going on, we've got this barbecue going on, we've got whatever this might be at the church. You want to come over? I mean, who doesn't like free food? And just hang out for a little while. And that's just an easy way for them to gain access to knowing who you know and seeing that your church is not really weird and that you're fun, real people who enjoy eating, whatever that may be. It's a soft entry, soft thing to invite them to. I know you all put a lot of emphasis on your visitors, and I'm thankful for that. Visitors are our prime prospects for the gospel. They've already shown an interest. They've already experienced the beauty of New Testament worship. And we ought to follow up with them. We ought to encourage them as much as we can. We use attendance cards, and we encourage everybody to fill out attendance cards, members and visitors, so they're all filling it out at the same time. We follow up with them. One way we follow up is that our secretary on Monday, she'll compile all the visitors' addresses from Sunday, and on Monday she'll send an email out to all of our members with the list of the visitors. Say, here are the visitors, the local visitors and the out-of-town visitors. Here's all the visitors that we had yesterday with their name and address. And we've got people that are writing cards. They're just busy writing cards to these visitors that are coming. So they're getting a handwritten, personalized. They're not just getting a letter from the church, that's a form letter, hey, thank you for visiting, but they're getting these personalized cards. Y'all mug your visitors here, is that right? That was in Denver. Y'all mugged them. I thought that was incredible. I thought that was funny to mug your visitors. Y'all gave them a mug, right? I mean, you didn't go and steal something from them, but I mean I love that concept. You know, you just take a mug here, but have some sort of gift, some reason to. If you're going to visit them, have some reason to show up there. Have something in your hand that you can give them. I'm way behind. Let me just put all of these up here. There's some things that you can tell them. I prayed for you today. I'm so thankful that I'm a Christian, and here's why. Here's some great things that happened at church yesterday. I wanted to let you know about them. You know, I talked to somebody about how concerned you are about the moral decline in our nation, and have a conversation. There's some things you can ask somebody. You know, is there something I can be praying for you this week? You know, I've been reading my Bible a lot lately. Have you been reading your Bible? And all I'm trying to do here is just to whet your appetite, your thoughts, to say these are just ways to create opportunities. And that's all we're trying to do is just, I want to teach somebody the gospel, but how do I open that door that Paul talks about? How do I get that entry into the opportunity to teach? And the way to do that is I've got to awaken. Wow, look at, they need it. I've got to talk to her. I really got to talk to her. Why do I create an opportunity. I just give them, hey, we got this thing down at church. I just want to give you this card, or, you know, I just want to give you this invitation, or send them something, or invite them. All that doing is just, and it may be multiple times you got to create opportunities. I mean, one's not going to work. Multiple ways, just creating these opportunities and these conversations. Very quickly, though, we're not done. We've got to stop, and we've got to act. And the T in act is not just awaken the prospects and create opportunities. I've got to teach. And I've got to come to the point where I am ready to teach somebody the gospel, realizing that creating those opportunities is not the same as teaching. I've got to go out and teach them, but here's this point that we made at the beginning, that every Christian has a personal, and I would add the word ability here, and I didn't have it here. Every Christian has a personal ability, you do, and responsibility to teach the gospel. But personally teaching somebody the gospel has been proven to be the most effective means of evangelism. Mass evangelism gets people's attention, gets people watching perhaps, and gets people, and maybe interested. But it's that one-on-one interaction. It's that person at work that you talk to. It's that person in the neighborhood that you talk to. It's that person that you invite to worship. That personal interaction, the one-on-one, has always been the most effective means of reaching somebody with the gospel. Why? Because it's real. It's not just I'm a part of a mass market. I'm a part of an individual relationship with somebody that's actually concerned about me, is actually talking. Now, remember, I'm not saying don't do world evangelism. I'm not saying don't do mass. We need to do it we need to push on every door we can. We need to try everything that we possibly can. But that includes me too. That includes me teaching somebody, trying to teach somebody the gospel. So what do I do? Somebody says yes. Sure, I'll study the Bible with you. I've got to do my ABCs, right? I've got to arrange the study. I always make sure that it is a time and a place that is most convenient for them. My schedule has to work around their schedule. And I don't make it inconvenient for them at all. I need to be confident that I can teach. You need to be confident that you can teach. Here's a statement you may not agree with. Every Christian knows what to teach. If you're a Christian, you know what to teach. And you know what to teach because you have obeyed what they need to obey. You've done what they need to do. You've learned what they need to learn. And so one of the things that we have printed up is just a little bookmark that sometimes folks, we've got them out in our lobby, and we've got a lot of tracts and stuff out in our lobby. One of the things we printed up was just a little bookmark that on one side it says, what Jesus did for you and why he did it. And then the other side is what Jesus expects of you and why he expects. And it's just a simple little thing. But you know this. You don't need a bookmark to tell you, what did Jesus do for us? Why did he do it? Yeah, you know that. What does Jesus want from us? Why does he want it? That's teaching somebody the gospel. You know enough to go out and to teach somebody what they need to do in order to become a child of God. What's holding us back? The C in ABC is I got to choose a study method. What am I going to teach? How am I going to teach them? You may be somebody that just sits down with the Bible and you just have an open Bible and you just teach them from an open Bible. A lot of people are not going to do that though. They need something to help them to teach. And so just for a minute, let me run through just some that you're probably already familiar with. Jewel Miller was, in my opinion, the greatest teaching resource of the 20th century in the church. I haven't looked at this, but I think it probably converted more people in that teaching tool than any other method because it was so easy. Some of you may have been converted by it. Some of you may have lugged, the film strip projector and then the audio player and the screen in your third hand and everything. You're trying to knock on somebody's door when you're trying to study, but it was effective. And then they put it on VHS tape, put it on a DVD. It's on a thumb drive now. Still available to use as a very effective teaching method. Some of you may have used Ivan Stewart's Bible study called Open Bible Study. 3 easy little sheets of paper to go through, ready-made, just to take those in the Bible, teach somebody the gospel. Some of you are probably not familiar with Jerry Jenkins' little book. This is available online now as a digital copy. You can also still order it from, I always forget what the congregation's name changed to in Birmingham where he preached. It's got a different name, but they still provide these. And you can still order. They're like $4 or $5, but there's four lessons in these, and they look just like this. They've got that gum. What's that gum adhesive that's used where you can tear something off at the top? And so each page just tears off. You read this page, okay, we're done with that, and you tear it off and you leave it with the person that you're studying with. But this is a pretty cool little study. I don't know anybody who was more effective in personal evangelism than Jerry Jenkins. I don't know anybody who did more personal Bible studies than Jerry Jenkins. This guy, he had a Bible study going on nearly every night of the week, and so it's a very effective study. You're no doubt familiar with Searching for Truth from World Video Bible School and John Moore. A similar concept to the Jewel Miller, came out on DVD. It's free online where you can share it with somebody, or better yet, go and sit with them in their home and watch it and let John Moore on the screen do the teaching. You may be familiar with Fishers of Men, which is an intensive training program where you get specially trained by somebody who is a trainer in the Fishers of Men program. It's a 16-lesson course that has also been proven to be very effective. You're probably familiar with Bobby Bates' little 3 books on Back to the Bible that is being used widely. And again, very easy to use. You just open the page and you just follow along in the Bible. And then several years ago, I wrote a series that's similar to a lot of these, but again, it was something that fit us. It was something that we needed that would fit our congregation. I think it fits others. But again, the concept is all you need is a booklet, a Bible, and a pen, and you're ready to go. You don't have to do a whole lot of preparation ahead of time. You go to the page and says, read this verse, you answer this question. Read this verse, answer this question. And it goes through and it teaches them the gospel. You're teaching them the gospel. So the whole point is not to sell you on any tool, but to say there are resources out there. You just need to find the one that fits you. Not every tool fits everybody the same. You need to find, maybe it's a video that works better for you. Maybe it's a booklet that works better. Whatever it is, find what fits you and then use it. Perfect it for you. Or if you can't find one, make up your own. Write your own lessons that will help. You know what needs to be taught. You can do that. I would encourage you to challenge yourself. And maybe make a challenge to the congregation as a whole. Challenge, because if we don't have goals to say this is what we want to do, well, what are we going to do? If we don't have challenges, to say I need to do more, I need to do better. My elders would never let me use the word more or better in any kind of goal setting for any kind of work, because they said it has to be measurable, and more and better are not measurable. Okay, got it. Yep, you're right. So it had to be defined. So maybe either as an individual or as a congregation, sit out and say, I'm going to, and go through what we talked about. Give out this many pieces of material. I'm going to send out this many messages. I'm going to invite this many people. I'm going to have this many Bible studies. And just set some goals. Set some goals that challenge you. This is Bible correspondence course down at the bottom. I just didn't have room to fit it all in. And I don't know if you all are involved in Bible correspondence courses or not. But a variety of teaching methods, but set some goals. What should we be able to do individually, or maybe as a congregation, and then work as a congregation to meet those goals? Let me very quickly give you some guarantees. When it comes, do you like guarantees? I mean, when you see the word guarantee, you're like, hey, all right, that's guaranteed. So let me give you some guarantees. And this is wrapping things up, right? There's only one more slide after this. This is wrapping things up, winding this lesson down. Guarantees when it comes to personal evangelism. Number one, it is difficult work. You're like, great, thanks a lot. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. You put it right at the beginning. It's difficult work. Number two, it is highly rewarding. Put those two together. Does it take effort? Yeah, it takes more effort than just coming to a place and sitting in a seat. It's going to take some effort in awakening these prospects, creating opportunities, and sit down and teaching. But it is highly rewarding when you do it. I guarantee you that it is. Number three, and a lot of these go together. The hardest part is getting started. Like a lot of things, hardest part is getting started. It only gets easier from there. Number four, success breeds success like fuel to a fire. Because once you teach somebody the gospel, you're going to go hunting for more. I guarantee it. It's weird, okay? You can think, well, I'm going to teach them the gospel and I'll feel good and then I'm going to take a break. You won't want to take a break. When you've been able to teach somebody the gospel, you're like, that was fun. That was great. I got to find somebody else. It is going to happen. What are we on? Number six? You will learn a lot yourself. The teachers always learn the most. If your fear is, I don't know enough, start teaching. You start teaching somebody, you will find out what you don't know, and then you'll go and learn it. You will learn a lot yourself. Number seven, open your eyes to the lost souls around you. Awaken the prospects. You won't be the same. When you see somebody at the store behind it as a cashier, and you see that person has a soul, you won't see them the same. You will treat them differently than maybe you would have treated them before when you realize, wait, they've got an eternal soul, and I can do something about that. It will change the way you see people. Number eight, in the eyes of God, Proverbs 11, verse 30, you will be counted as wise. In the eyes of Christ, number 9, you will be a faithful servant. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Last one, God promises, guarantees, God promises to help you do his work. Lo, I'm with you always. Can you imagine being Joshua in Joshua chapter 1? When Moses is, that's the first part of Joshua chapter 1. Moses is dead. Yeah, thanks, Lord. I know that. That's what I'm worried about. And it's on you, Joshua. Did he say it's all on you? No, it's not all on you. I'm with you in this process, and he is with us as we do his work. I want to share with you one quote, and then we'll be done. Otis Gatewood was a great personal worker, great missionary of the 20th century. Wrote a book, and it was revised at least once, called You Can Do Personal Work. And here's just a quote I want to share with you from that book, and then we'll finish. He says, if you want to save a soul badly enough, you'll make a way. There might be many rules to follow, but the greatest is the desire. You may not know best how to talk to people about their souls, but if you want to so badly that you cannot keep from it, your biggest battle is won. Know definitely why you should be a personal worker, and the how will not be difficult. If we can have that heart that says, I see these souls, I want to help them, I want to teach them the gospel, I want to stop getting myself in the way, and I want to reach out and tell them what I know, you've overcome the hardest part. And the rest will not be that difficult. And the Lord is going to walk with you every step of the way. Today we talked about the greatest work in the world, and we get to be We get to be. Don't have. We could look at it and say we have to be. Okay. I get to be. I get to be a part of the greatest work in the world. Let's have a prayer. Holy Father, talked about some exciting things in these last few minutes, and some nervous things too. We look at it and we think, it's just not for me, and I'm not ready for that. And we have obstacles, we have concerns, we have fears, God. First thing we do today is we just admit those to you. And we tell you that we have them. And Father, we just pray that you will help us to overcome us. Whatever it is that's holding us back, help us to acknowledge it, and help us to pray to you and ask you to help us to get over it so that we can do it. Father, thank you for involving us in your work on this earth. Thank you for being with us every step of the way. Father, help us to do your work. Help us to do that which is pleasing to you. Help us to awaken the prospects around us. Help us to create opportunities. Help us to enjoy teaching them the good news that we know. In Jesus' name we pray.